I get it, you're staring at a dozen welding kits online, wondering which one will actually let you finish the backyard gate, the metal art project, or that rusty bike frame without ending up with a half-finished mess and a dented wallet. The fear of splurging on a machine that looks great on paper but stalls when you need it most is real, especially when you're juggling a limited budget and a growing list of projects. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Eastwood MIG 180 and TIG 220 AC/DC Ultimate Fabrication Dual-Welder Kit tries to answer that exact dilemma by bundling two fundamentally different welding processes into a single, portable box. That's a bold promise, because most hobbyists end up buying a MIG for sheet metal and a separate TIG for thin stainless work, then wrestling with two power cords, two manuals, and two sets of accessories. Eastwood's approach is to give you one unit that can switch between 180 amps of MIG and 220 amps of TIG, while also handling both 120V and 240V input. If you've ever wished you could walk into a garage, pull one plug, and have the right arc for anything you throw at it, this is the kit that's marketed to satisfy that wish. Let's break down what that really looks like in a typical weekend workshop. Imagine you've got an inch-mild steel frame for a custom barbecue pit. You fire up the MIG at 180 amps on 120V, and the inverter-based power source kicks in with a smooth, steady wire feed. The advanced control panel lets you dial in voltage and wire speed on the fly, which is handy when you're moving from a tight corner weld to a longer seam. Because it's an inverter, the unit stays relatively cool, and you can keep welding for an hour or more before the fan even hums loudly. That translates to fewer interruptions, which is a hidden time saver you don't see in the spec sheet. Now switch gears. You've got a thin sheet of 304 stainless that you need to join for a decorative railing. The same box flips to TIG mode, automatically reconfiguring the output to 220 amps and offering both AC and DC. The AC capability is crucial for cleaning the oxide layer on stainless, while DC gives you better penetration on thicker steel. In practice, the transition is as simple as turning a knob and changing the torch. I've watched a friend who normally wrestles with a separate TIG machine spend less than 5 minutes getting the Eastwood set to the right settings, then produce a clean, bead-free weld on a 1mm stainless panel. That kind of flexibility is the real value driver for anyone who moves between different metals or thicknesses regularly. Who should consider this kit? First, the serious hobbyist who already knows the basics of both MIG and TIG and wants to consolidate gear. If you're the type who builds custom furniture, restores vintage motorcycles, or does a mix of automotive and artistic welding, the dual voltage flexibility means you can plug into a standard household outlet for small jobs and tap into a 240V source when you need that extra punch for thicker material. It also comes with a decent set of accessories: ground clamps, a MIG gun, a TIG torch, and a spool gun adapter, so you're not left hunting for extra parts after the purchase. On the other hand, if you're just starting out and only need to weld mild steel for a few DIY projects, the added complexity might be more than you need. The learning curve of toggling between MIG and TIG, plus the need to understand when AC versus DC is appropriate, can be intimidating for a complete beginner. In that scenario, a single-process welder that's tuned for ease of use could give you faster confidence without the extra knobs and settings. Now, let's talk about the practical downsides. The first thing you'll notice is weight. Packing both a MIG and a TIG power module into one chassis makes the unit heavier than a dedicated MIG or TIG machine of comparable power. If you plan to move it around a large shop or take it to a job site, you'll need a sturdy dolly or a good set of wheels, which aren't included. That's a trade-off you have to accept for the convenience of having two processes in one box. Second, while the inverter efficiency keeps the unit cooler, it also means you'll hear a constant fan whine during extended runs. It's not a deal-breaker, but if you're working in a very quiet environment, that background noise can be a mild annoyance. The fan speed is fixed, you can't dial it down, so the sound level stays the same whether you're on a low-amp MIG weld or a high-amp TIG pass. Third, the dual voltage capability is a blessing and a curse. The kit can run on both 120V and 240V, but you have to manually switch the input voltage selector and change the plug adapter. Forgetting to swap the plug when you move from a garage outlet to a shop's 240V feed can trip a breaker or, worse, damage the